Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a situation where a clear public demand for transparency is just slamming into this wall of administrative chaos.
Massive wall.
Yeah, a massive one. We're talking about the delayed release of the federal investigation files on Jeffrey Epstein and, of course, his associate Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
And the mission here, based on the sources you sent over, is to really unpack why. Why did the Department of Justice blow past a congressional deadline? And then we need to look at the political backlash that followed, which is interesting because it came from both sides, And finally, understand the actual critical legal rules that are making this whole process so painstaking.
And this isn't just another political story, is it? It's a profound logistical puzzle. I mean, these files come from decades of investigation into Epstein's network. The sheer volume was always going to be immense. And after Maxwell's conviction in 2021, the public and Congress, they just demanded total transparency. But when you start to drill down into what the government can actually do, capacity-wise, well, the delay starts to make a bit more sense, even if it's still controversial.
Okay, so let's start with the formal mandate itself. This wasn't, some optional press release.
Not at all.
It was forced by the Epstein Files Transparency Act. And Congress set a really strict deadline, December 19th.
A deadline which is, of course, come and gone.
Exactly. So technically, the DOJ is not complying with the law right now.
Well, yes and no. It's crucial to acknowledge the work that was done. I mean, the full release is delayed, but we have seen some initial batches of material.
Right. Some things did come out.
We've seen court records, interview transcripts, photos, even grand jury testimonies. And these early releases, they weren't trivial. They immediately sparked renewed scrutiny into how Epstein's operation worked, and Ghislaine Maxwell's really foundational role in it all.
And of course, because of all the high-profile names connected to this case, even those early files got intense, immediate attention.
Of course.
But this is where we hit the first, administrative tripwire, the first sign of the problems to come. Officials themselves had to jump in and clarify that some of the stuff being passed around online was just fake.
Absolutely. The sources point to at least one specific item, a letter, supposedly from Epstein, that named other people. And officials confirmed it was a counterfeit, or at least misleading.
Okay, so think about what that means for the people doing the work.
Oh, it's an operational nightmare.
Right. If you're a lawyer or a paralegal and your job is to review millions of pages, the whole game changes the second you realize you can't trust what you're looking at.
Exactly. It stops being a redaction job and becomes this forensic authentication job.
A nightmare, like you said.
Yeah.
Because if one document is fake, you have to slow everything down. You have to verify the integrity of every single piece of paper that mentions a key name or a sensitive event.
And your timeline just goes out the window. The estimate for getting the job done suddenly becomes exponentially longer. This authentication issue is a huge piece of the puzzle in understanding the delay.
And that vetting process, plus the scale, is why they missed the December 19th deadline. The DOJ said they needed several more weeks, but their explanation really pointed to, well, either a massive logistical failure or, I suppose, a massive logistical discovery.
Discovery is a good way to put it.
So if the authentication challenge is one part of it, what about the volume? Let's get into the hard numbers here, because this is really the core of it.
The numbers are they're staggering. The DOJ and other federal agencies, they unexpectedly uncovered more than 1 million additional documents.
1 million more.
1 million more. Documents they determined were relevant, so they fall under the Act. This was material they apparently hadn't fully accounted for when the law was being drafted.
And where did this mountain of new paper come from?
That's the key detail. It came primarily from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, the SDNY, and the FBI.
So the two main agencies that ran the investigation.
The very core of it. The fact that even after all these years and a successful prosecution, more than 1 million pages are only now being uncovered. It just raises some serious questions.
About what? Data management.
Data management, interagency coordination. Was this stuff just sitting in a forgotten digital archive somewhere? Or did they only go looking for it once Congress forced their hand? It brings the total count into the several million-page range.
That's the question I can't shake. If SDNY and the FBI are suddenly handing over 1 million pages that weren't in the initial count, it points to a pretty profound failure in how they consolidated their own records.
Either that or a serious underestimation of the scope. Whatever the reason, the result is an operational crisis.
So what does that mean in practical terms for the people on the ground?
Well, look, processing documents like this needs specialized legal teams. You can't just have interns do it. These lawyers have to read the material, check for relevance, authenticate it.
Especially after the fake letter issue.
Exactly. And then they get to the hardest part, redaction. The DOJ says they're working around the clock, and I believe them. The sheer manpower and resources required to handle millions of pages on this kind of timeline is just immense.
And it's not just the number of pages slowing them down, right? It's the level of detail they have to apply.
That's the other side of the coin. The DOJ isn't just allowed to dump everything. They are legally required to balance public disclosure with victim protections. That's federal law.
So the law itself has this built-in break.
A necessary one.
Oh.
The law is explicit. Any data that could identify victims, especially minors, has to be rigorously found, cross-referenced, and redacted before anything is made public.
Can you explain how hard that actually is? I mean, it sounds harder than just blacking out a name.
Oh, it's way harder. In a case this big, you have aliases, code names, different locations. The legal teams have to make sure that if a victim is called by a nickname in one document,
Right.
and then by their full legal name in an interview transcript from 3 years later, that they catch both instances and shield them. It requires incredibly sophisticated cross-referencing against victim databases and existing court records. If they miss just one reference, they could violate federal law and, re-traumatize someone. With 1 million new documents in the mix, the chance for human error just skyrockets. So the slowdown is actually a necessary part of doing their legal duty.
That context really changes things. It's not just a delay in releasing info, it's a delay needed to protect victims. But necessary or not, the politics of it got heated and fast.
And from both sides. That's what's so fascinating.
It wasn't a typical partisan fight.
No. The criticism came from the same people who championed the law in the first place. On the Republican side, you had Representative Thomas Massie, one of the law's main authors. He came out and said the DOJ broke the law.
And he also accused them of making illegal redactions. What does that even mean in this context?
It implies bad faith. When Massie says illegal redactions, he's suggesting the DOJ might be blacking out information that has nothing to do with victims.
But has to do
with powerful people, perhaps. With the conduct of significant figures tied to the case. The accusation is that the DOJ is using the victim protection rule as a convenient shield to bury politically damaging material.
And that's a serious charge.
It moves it from an administrative complaint to an accusation of a cover-up.
And the Democrats were skeptical, too.
They were. Representative Ro Khanna, for example, basically said, you have to keep the pressure on these agencies because their default setting is to hold information back. He argued that only constant political scrutiny will get you full compliance.
And then there's the timing of the announcement itself. That also drew a lot of fire.
A huge amount. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called it a Christmas Eve news dump. That is very charged language in politics.
It is. It's basically an accusation of trying to bury bad news.
Yeah, Clay. A news dump is when you release damaging information, when you know the media and the public aren't paying attention, like right before a holiday weekend. By announcing this huge delay on Christmas Eve, critics say the government was trying to duck scrutiny.
And that just feeds the narrative that they have something to hide.
It pours gasoline on the fire. It suggests they might be shielding powerful people whose names are in those 1 million new documents.
So with all this bipartisan heat, the White House had to respond.
They did. They defended the DOJ, of course. A spokesperson said this administration put together a strong legal team specifically to implement the law properly.
So their argument is, we're trying, it's just really, really hard?
Pretty much. The argument is the delay is because of the logistical mountain and the legal duty to protect victims, not because of a lack of will. But critics are not buying it. They say whether it's politics or just incompetence, the result is the same.
A lack of transparency.
Broken promises and a lack of transparency.
Okay, that debate between capacity and willingness is what we really need to focus on here. So let's bring it back to you, the listener. Why does this administrative back and forth matter beyond the headlines?
It matters because this breakdown shows the inherent tension at the heart of these big federal investigations. The system is legally bound to protect victim privacy, which is slow, detailed work. But it's also facing this incredible political pressure to release everything about significant figures immediately. The delay is just the visible crack in a system that's being pulled in two opposite directions at once.
So if we boil it all down, the main takeaway is this. Despite the DOJ working around the clock, the sheer unexpected volume, that 1 million+ documents from the SDNY and the FBI, is the real hurdle.
It's the hurdle that means the public has to wait several more weeks, maybe even months, to see the full story.
And that delay has now changed the whole legislative conversation around this.
Completely. Lawmakers on both sides are already gearing up for serious oversight measures. The trust has been broken, so now they're calling for inspector general audits.
An IG audit, that's a big deal. What would that actually involve?
It means they want an independent investigation into the process itself. An inspector general would look at how these documents were suddenly found, why they weren't found before, the staffing levels on the review, and most importantly, the criteria being used for the redactions.
To answer that illegal redactions charge.
Precisely. It's external oversight designed to make sure the process is impartial and to address those accusations of political shielding head-on.
The push for an audit really confirms this has moved way past a simple paperwork delay. It's now about institutional credibility.
It absolutely is.
So we've covered the logistical mess of a million new documents, the complex legal need to protect victims, and this resulting bipartisan firestorm over transparency.
Which leaves us with a final and I think really important question for you to think about. Given all this skepticism from lawmakers and these pending IG audits, how effectively can any federal agency manage a release of this scale under such intense political pressure? What does this collision between a simple law and the messy reality of millions of documents tell us about the real-world limits of government transparency when the stakes are this high?
That is the essential conflict here, isn't it? Thank you for sharing your sources and helping us unpack this. It's a complex intersection of law, administrative failure, and public accountability. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.